Bien, muy buenas tardes. Vamos a continuar con los trabajos en el marco de la cátedra doctor Héctor Mayagoitia. El profesor e investigador nos acompaña el doctor Sabarathinam Chidambaram, el cual le agradecemos nuevamente su asistencia al país, al Instituto Politécnico Nacional, y en fin, nos comparte un poco más de lo que están haciendo allá en Kuwait. La doctora Sujitha Suresh Babu va a presentarnos una breve semblanza del doctor y de igual manera nos va a platicar, moderar esta conferencia magistral. Por favor, doctora Sujitha.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Thank you so much, Dr. Chidambaram, for being with us today in the Earth Sciences School of IPN. Thank you so much. Considero un honor para presentar el currículum de Dr. Chidambaram porque él fue uno de mis profesores. It is a great honor for me to present your curriculum because you are being one of the most inspiring professors of me. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Chidambaram Sabarathinam, research scientist from Water Research Center, Kuwait, Institute for Scientific Research, is a geologist, completed his master's and joined Annamalai University as a lecturer in 1998. He obtained his doctorate in groundwater hydrogeochemistry from the same university and was the professor and head of the Department of Earth Sciences, Annamalai University from 2015 to 2017. He is an expert in hydrogeochemical modeling, isotope geochemistry, noble gases in groundwater, statistical and GIS applications. He has also developed expertise in various geoscientific softwares and programming with C, C++, and Python. He has completed more than 20 research projects and guided more than 17 PhD students, 18 MPhil candidates, and more than 250 research publications in referred journals. And the doctor has also been awarded Best Paper for the 2013 by Applied Water Sciences Journal. He was awarded a medal for the best contribution in the field of hydrogeology and environmental geochemistry. He has received the Dr. Héctor Mayagoitia Lecture Series Award for the contribution in the field of hydrogeology and hydrogeochemistry from IPN in the year 2018. So he's listed in one of the top 2% scientists of the world for the year 2022, which is published by the Stanford University through Elsevier platform. And thank you so much, sir. Now it's all yours.
Thank you, and good morning to you all, and good afternoon, obviously. And it's a pleasure to be here in IPN and CIIEMAD. I had been here 2-3 occasions, and I had a good collaboration with Dr. Pedro and Dr. Jonathan, and we are also working with Sujitha also. And Dr. Pedro would call me as CT because my name is very big, as Sabarathinam Chidambaram. So he calls me CT, and that is very simple as it. I love that. So without taking much of the time, I go straight away into what I need to convey to you today. It's on computational techniques. Actually, I planned it this way. I had to bring something to the students and the staff members or the research scholars, like what exactly is happening on the recent science and technology related to the digital era. So I wanted to give an example with a field which I know or which I am working on. So that is why I took this groundwater computational techniques. I have tried to link most of the recent developments which is related to the information technology and how data are presented, how modern research articles they are looking on, and what kind of research in the digital era is very important. So I've just tried to put everything in a shell and try to give you that. I don't know how far that reaches you, but still you can be in touch with me. I have given my email ID there. So you can be in touch with me, and if there are anything to be in future communications, you can always be in touch with me. So basically, the presentation of my structure, the presentation structure will be something like this. I'll try to give you some background about the broad applications on the information and technology, and what are the different softwares used. I will refer it with groundwater alone, and the limitations, and the status of computational techniques in different water research, and way forward. Like, you do all the research, and how far it is applicable to the society, and how it is considered globally. How do you link this for the betterment of the society? So that is where I wanted to end my lecture with. So obviously, earlier days, I have kept a figure here which you can see that earlier days we were more on manual data, and we try to collect all these manual things, and then we have to work on the calculations, draw graphs, and then it takes a lot of time for interpretation. Now it has all become IT based, software based, and even for the software you link 2-3 softwares integrated and then work on it, and you don't need to install a software in your system. You can directly work it from the cloud itself. So there are a lot of developments taking place in the era of digital science. So I just wanted to give you a glimpse of it. With regard to the data, there are a lot of things which can be done with respect to the modern digital data. If you can see that the data is being used for studying a time. For example, if you want to know the evolution of a particular place, so then you need to know something about 1971, then 2020, 2023. So you need to have a time series of data, or it may be one set of these data, or data from 1970 until today. And this data may be daily, data may be monthly, this data may be yearly. So that defines the volume of the data. So when you have that much volume of a data, then you will have to go for a computational technique which you cannot do it manually. Okay? So there is the main role of this modern digital computational techniques play a main role. If you know that per day nearly about 2.5 billion data is being generated, and you know for 1 year alone, 2018, 33 zettabytes of data was generated. So that means the volume of data which is generated is enormous. So that data generated, maybe we can categorize the data into 3 different structures, the 3 different categories. It may be a structured data, or it may be a unstructured data, or semi-structured data. If it is a structured data, it is mainly with respect to tables, or if it is definitely organized. Or if it is unstructured data, it can be like a form of figures, like your spatial maps, remote sensing imageries, or it can be an image which is captured in a Facebook or something. So for all deep learning, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, this data forms the base. So the data which is generated recently, or the data which is generated previous years ago, have all to be put together in one platform for future research. So that is where the modern digital era stands here. So here, as I have told you, for long-term variation and planning, it is required. And for climate change scenarios, we have different models of climate change, global climate change models, and different scenarios have been given, RCP4, RCP8. So there are different scenarios have been given. So for each scenario, there are voluminous data which are available. It doesn't link to one site. For example, you will have a data which is present in FAO site, Food and Agricultural Organization site, and you will have a data somewhere in World Meteorological Organization site. You will have a data somewhere in Water Resources site. So this software will try to get all these data from different websites and process your result. So this is how the cloud data processing is taking place nowadays. Okay? It doesn't mean that you need to supply a data. You can take the data which is already available in some websites, so that it can link to different websites start processing it, and give you the result. Okay? So that is where the climate change scenarios and water resource, and most of the countries develop their own databases. For example, national water resource database of a particular country. So that has X to Y. I'll just show you examples later. And similarly, for developing a machine learning algorithms, or to get some interpretation based on the data, which we go on for machine learning, then subsequent stages we go for deep learning, and then we adopt artificial intelligence techniques. So for all these, we cannot do with a one table data set. We will have to go either for a three-dimensional voluminous data set. A minimum of 100 volume is required. So go for a machine learning technique. So in that case, manual calculations always have errors, expected to have errors. So we prefer digital era to process more number of our voluminous data. Okay? So as I have told you about cloud computing, and there is neural networking also. So with all this, the digital information is becoming very important. So why do we want to go for digital information studies, and what is the future of the research in with respect to any science in digital information? This is a published article in a journal. So where it says that what will happen in 2035 when you go for a study with digital information. So you can see that most of the studies will be concentrating on artificial intelligence. You know that around the world there are a lot of regions which has data. There will be a very few selected regions which do not have data. For example, you study groundwater, you study soil, you study climate. So there are almost all the regions of the world have some data at least, but you don't have a time series data. For example, you will do a chemistry analysis of groundwater on 2018 here. The same study will be done by somebody in 2023, then the same study will be done by somebody in 2024 or 25. But the data is being generated. Now, people are not concentrating on the previous data which is already accumulated. They study with their own data alone. So, it is now time that we will have to integrate all the available data for a region. You get it? So, there stands the voluminous data which is available for one particular region, which can give us a multitude dimension, and this will help us to move towards artificial intelligence. Okay? So then mostly it is all data is basically with respect to open science. If you create a data, in most of the journals which you can see that they will ask you whether you will be submitting the data or not. They prefer submitting the data because they will put it in the repository. Somebody else who wants to do some research in future, he can see if this work is done already. So then he can orient his research in future accordingly in a different pattern. Or he may use the same research data for processing or identifying it in a different style. So the data always is there on the internet. It is not necessary that you should create a data. You can always try to interpret somebody's data and say whether it can be applicable for another science or not. Okay? So that kind of studies are also peaking up, and similarly it's mainly on the digital healthcare, and it is on the interface of different integration of different science which is concentrating. So everything will be related at last to one particular concept, it is artificial intelligence. So most of the science, irrespective of the field which you are working on, may it be medicine, may it be agriculture, may it be groundwater, or any kind of field which you are working on, man always try to move towards artificial intelligence, because he wants somebody to help him to assist or to make a decision. So though he may have a critical decision on his mind, he wants somebody else to assist that decision to say whether the information is right or wrong. We cannot always 100% depend upon the artificial intelligence systems, but still you will have an idea, and that system is keeping on building. It doesn't end at one place. Today the data available for artificial intelligence may be 100,000 data set, but later tomorrow it may be 200,000 data set. So it is building upon lot of information within day by day. Okay, each second the data is being building upon. Apart from this, there are lot of research tools This is related to science and technology and information. So there are a lot of research tools which can assist for writing a paper, writing a thesis, writing a dissertation, etc. So you can see literature search, writing assistance, you have citations, illustrations. So all these play a very important role in presentation of something. For example, it may be a paper, or it may be a thesis, or it may be a dissertation which you wanted to submit on. Okay. So this is one of the advantages which can consume less amount of time. So there are a lot of tools nowadays. When you are going for a journal submission, they ask you whether you have used any tool which is like an artificial intelligence tool is used to write the paper. Then you will have to state that, yes, there is an artificial intelligence tool used to write the paper. But when you are using this tool, you will have to be very careful. For example, you say paraphrasing. For a small example, I can tell you, like there is a basin of water, groundwater basin, it is written. So when you paraphrase it, it says at groundwater bowl. So that doesn't mean properly. So the reader should have the concept whether the paraphrased sentence is right or wrong. So unless and until he knows whether it is right or wrong, you can easily make out from the sentence which is written there it is paraphrased. Okay, so that may less down the value of your future publications. Okay, so though you have lot of tools available, you will have to be very crucial in identifying which tool, where you can apply, and to what extent you can apply. You get the point? So that is it. I'll just show you one example of this reference presentation. And for any research, you go for a reference collection, and that is where you start your research. We say that is literature review. So literature review forms a very important role in any kind of research which you do. So nowadays, representation of research in your section of literature review, earlier we used to write that the study has been done by X or Y on a particular area, and then he found out this, and this was the ending. Like that we used to write 5-10 researchers, and then at last we used to tell that, so this kind of study which is not adopted, I found the gap there, now I am trying to fix that. So that is where we find the literature review. But nowadays, you go to Scopus, for example, I am just telling you for an example. You go to Scopus database, you type the keywords which you want to search, for example, groundwater and seawater intrusion, coastal aquifer, something, the keywords which your research is concentrating on. You type on the Scopus database and you get some 600 to 700 literatures, and then you will have to fine tune it. There are a lot of other things also. You can have a separate class for this itself. So then with that you can take this as an Excel file or a CSV file to that of another software called as WAS. So wherein this can be drawn like an interlinkage diagrams like this. So these are keyword linkages diagrams of the paper which you downloaded from the internet. It draws with respect to the keywords. So the bigger size of the keyword indicates the most repetitive keyword in that 600 database, and the smallest one is less frequently repeated. And you will have a minimum occurrence of frequency. The circle represents more than 5 occurrence or 10 occurrence. So I don't want to complicate you much, but there is a definite relationship between the size of the circle and the thickness of the line. Means more strong the relationship between these two keywords which are used in the literature. So that kind of inferences can be made with the recent technologies. And similarly, if with respect to time, if there is an evolution of study, for example, you can also try to find out a chronological variation with respect to color. So you can see here, this is the old, see these are all old researches, and this is the recent ones. So the recent one is on yellow color, the old one is on blue dark colors. So now you can see the old research were concentrating more on fuzzy logic techniques, and recently more on quality and groundwater quality. So something like that can be related with respect to the evolution of the keywords. So that can also be done with respect to the softwares, recently available softwares. So where these computational techniques can play a role, I just try to summarize in what different stages they can play a very important role. It can be either to describe a data, to get an overview of the result, or to diagnose the data. You can interpret the result, or try to make some calculations or analysis with the result, or predict the future scenarios, what can happen, like models, like it may be a groundwater model, geochemical model, or climate change model. So something to predict what will happen in future, or visualization of the data. Nowadays, the normal scatter graphs or normal box plots, normal bar charts are not appealing. So they wanted a different kind of a graph to be presented, so that at least the data gets published for the newly available picture, or which is something eye-catching. When you go for a presentation, sometimes your presentation scientific point is not taken more consideration. Your pictures which you present catches the mind of the presenters or the observers. So new kind of pictures which you evolve for the same database impresses the viewer. So there again your computational techniques play a very important role. Okay, so I try to summarize that in a different kind of a diagram. So wherein I'll just give you some examples, and this is with respect to groundwater. In a groundwater research, obviously you know that there are very common diagrams which are used to explain the chemistry of water, which we call it as a Piper diagram. And Piper started it in 1944, and still we use that diagram because that is very significant recent days. Earlier his diagram was in a graph, trilinear graph. Then later we tried to bring it out in different computer formats, and now it is available integrated with the software. So there are different softwares integrating this Piper diagram, like it may be an Aquachem, or it may be a geochemist workbench, or GWW. So there are different softwares which integrate even this old diagram because it's very significant. Okay, so normal, it gives your normal viscous plot, which is a very common diagram to describe your data set, like what is your mean, what is your percentile, maximum percentile, minimum percentile. So that is also tried to bring up. So what expected is we need everything at one click. So you will have to customize your own software or your own basic need what is required for your research. For example, if you take Excel, Excel has all the lot of things in your plate. You need to select what is required in that and what is more commonly frequently utilized from that software, like whether you are going for statistical applications in Excel or whether you are going for new diagrams in Excel. So there are a lot of diagrams in Excel itself which we are not explored. I'll show you one chart. In Excel itself we have a lot of diagrams which we are not yet explored. Might be I am not yet explored. So these are some of the diagrams which can incorporate or it can be customized. So for that what we did was, this is for our own thing. So when lot of other softwares were already available, we wanted to customize our own software for what we require for a groundwater research, for a groundwater geochemical research. So in that case, we try to incorporate in one C++ program to develop all the basic geochemical parameters which are required to categorize the groundwater with respect to geochemical parameters. So this one we developed in 2004 to bring out the basic geochemical parameters of different categories, may it be for domestic purpose or agriculture purpose or different purposes. We have tried to bring it out. And then later we further developed the same program in Visual C++, and then we incorporated lot of other parameters also, so that it is, though there are certain old diagrams which are not brought out in one software recent days. So we, as I've told you, we have to customize what we require. So we try to bring it out. Now we are working it out in Java and combining that with Python, so that earlier next year probably it will be released in Windows based platform. It will be very user interface software. So apart from this, there is a geochemist workbench which is generally used by any kind of a geologist, any geologist can use this kind of software, may it be a groundwater geochemistry or it for soil geochemistry, or you can use it for subsurface studies with respect to logs. So most of the, or RE geochemistry. So there are a lot of applications with respect to these softwares. Generally what we do is, suppose you get a software, you are pertaining to a particular field. For example, if I am pertaining to groundwater, I look on the objective of groundwater, what I can use, how I can use this software with respect to groundwater alone. So that will be my perspective. But if somebody else, like a new researcher or youngsters who watch into that particular software, for example, if you take it in masters, you will know what can be done, what cannot be done with respect to any kind of research you take in future. So basically, instead of knowing these softwares before you come to research, on the stage of research, it's always better you know the softwares before you come to the field of the research. So then you will know whether you can use this software for your research or not, and what are the plus minus for this software on your research or not. So either in your pre-doctoral programs or in your pre-research programs, it's always better to know all the available softwares on the geological, related to the geological fields, so that you will know whether you can apply this to your study or not. Okay? So that is one of the small thing which I wanted to tell you, because I faced this problem, because I learned the softwares later. I had my own idea that this will be fit only for that. But my students came and told me that no sir, we can use this for the other purposes also. So then I understood that we have to have this knowledge before even coming to the field of a particular research. Okay, so then interpretation softwares, any basic research starts with statistics. So without statistical interpretations, your research is not valid, or your thesis is not valid. So because it may be, because you know there is a minimum amount of data which is required for statistics, and you know the type of data which is required for statistics, and this statistical interpretation will always be used in integration with other result. It is not a conclusive result. For example, you have different techniques which are not giving you conclusive results, but it has to be used in integration with other results. For example, you say isotopic interpretations, they are not conclusive. They have to be used in integration with other results. Similarly, remote sensing, it has to be used in integration with other results. Statistics, again, it has to be used in integration with other results. So these are all techniques which have to be integrated, used together. It cannot give you a conclusive finding individually. I think I am clear. Okay? So you should know all these techniques before entering the field of research. So that is why I am stressing you on this. Softwares always you should know, as in a pre-doctoral program or in a pre-PhD courses, so that it will be very important for you to know whether it can be applicable for you or not. And yes, this is again statistics nowadays has come to the next stage where it can be applied for machine learning. So the first stage of artificial intelligence starts with machine learning. So for machine learning, you need to have enough amount of data. You will have to train the data set, and then the trained data set will be checked for whether it can be predicting properly or not. Then predicted data set will be validated, and then after validation it will be, the calculated data set will be validated and then predicted. Okay, so you need to have enough volume of data to train, and then to calculate, and then to validate, and then to predict. So for all this, you should know whether the data set is distributed properly or not. So for identifying the distribution of data sets means removing the errors and removing the the spikes in your data set, we always need to work with statistics. So statistics again plays a very basic important role when you go for future machine learning or artificial intelligence studies. Okay. Okay, so then the next step of machine learning is a software or a program which you should definitely be aware is Python. So Python is the most recently developing software, means the language, which is very easy because it has built-in libraries. You don't need to create or write a code to draw a graph, or you don't need to write a separate code to draw different, it may be a swarm plot or a pie chart, or just 2 lines or 3 lines will do. It's already available, library is already available. You just need to write these 2-3 lines, you can get the diagrams easily, or interpretation you can make it very easily. So that is why it's always better to come up with these languages. So Python is one of the very important language which is coming up. So these are some of the interesting diagrams which you can draw with Python. May it be, it's a very simple kind of a picture when you see, and this example is called as the violin plot, and this one is called as the swarm plot, and obviously these diagrams are normalized, standard normalized diagrams. We call it as standard normalized diagrams. But we should have enough amount of data to draw all these 2 diagrams. We cannot draw with a little volume of a data. You should have some thousands of data to draw the standard normalized diagrams. But for this, generally nowadays researchers are more, for when you submit something, they ask you for a distribution of entire sample concentration. For example, if I say calcium is distributed, I have 100 samples of calcium value. So when I present it in a conference or somewhere, I just give a maximum value, minimum value, and an average value. Or I try to put a viscous plot and say maximum percentile, minimum percentile, and an average. So I cannot show my distribution of the data. You get my point? I cannot show you what is the minimum value of my data and where all the values of the 100 samples are plotted and in what range they are, what is maximum, what is minimum. I cannot tell you that in one diagram. But in swarm plot, I have represented all the 100 values in this plot. So wherein you can see that the minimum range is here, and you have a distribution of sample on this concentration, and the maximum you have few sample concentrations. This I can do it for all the ions or all the parameters which I can, which I am to do. But you have to do it cautiously. This range should be common. You cannot compare this range with a different range. For example, pH is distributed between 6 to 7. The distribution range is very low. You cannot draw that with this range. This range will be 200 to 100. So then your distribution will not be even when you draw this. For example, EC values, electrical conductivity values will be in thousands. So you cannot compare 1000 range value with the 200 value. So you will have to make it clear what parameters you will have to use there, and then this plot you can draw. You can combine these 2 graphs also. It is called as violin plot combined with a swarm plot. So you will have the shape of a violin here. Shape of a violin here. So that means the distribution of sample values are higher here, and the distribution of, you can see that this is bimodal. So you have 2 different sample distribution concentration. So with the shape of the violin, we can understand what is happening there. Or you can even combine, as I have told you, you can even combine these 2 diagrams. So these are all small impressive diagrams which can help you to improve your presentation. Okay. Yes, then machine learning. Obviously, as I have told you, I will not take much of time in this. All what is required is, for machine learning, you required a large volume of data, and that data, as I have told you earlier, it can be a structured data, or it can be a non-structured data, or unsupervised data, or it can be semi-structured data like log files or XML files. That can be a semi-structured data. And this is a remote sensing imagery, which is an unsupervised image. You can even try to compare 2 different type of images and then give some inferences. You may not restrict this to one field of research alone. For example, there are recent type of research in health industry coming up. There is a small difference in temperature of a foot of a diabetic person. The temperature of distribution, spatial distribution of temperature in the foot of a diabetic person. It will be varying. You will have a different temperature distribution in the foot of a diabetic person. So that they are trying to bring up, thermal mapping they say, and then that they are trying to bring up and find out whether this person is long-term diabetic or recently what type of diabetic he is, and what best cure can be given for this kind of diabetics. So that they are trying to bring up something with artificial intelligence. For that, first they have started this machine learning with the data set, and then they are trying to bring out the size of the foot, and then in which part of the foot the temperature is increasing, and what is the maximum difference in temperature in the foot. So that and all they are trying to bring up in the thermal mapping of the diabetic patients, in the foot of the diabetic patients. So even there, this unsupervised classification of learning in machine learning is being applied. Okay, so I'm just trying to orient with one or two different fields and tell you where all these can be used. Okay, and this is again, as I've told you, for process identification you can use different softwares. This is, for example, the field which I know I have given for the groundwater geochemistry, what is happening for water traveling from one point to the other point, what is happening, that can be predicted with the composition of two different ends. So if I know one end composition and the other end composition, the software helps us to create different scenarios, and then you will have to validate what could be the best possible process along the travel. So this is for process identification. Again, computer techniques can be used like this. And then this is for type of volume of water or movement of one particular pollutant from one region to the other. For example, you have a landfill which is being contaminating your groundwater. How long it takes for the pollutant to travel from this site to the next location, and what will be the rate of movement. So all that can be calculated with the help of these kind of softwares, and that is ModFlow software. And again, this can also be, computer techniques can also be applied in remote sensing imageries, wherein you try to combine different type of layers or a thematic layer. We call different themes, these soil type or soil rainfall or different type of layers which you create, and you can try to integrate all these layers using your own algorithm, like what you want, like you give a different preference and then try to combine this layer to identify groundwater potential zone or contamination mapping. You can do whatever is required for your study. Okay, and then yes, and this is for GIS studies. Again, groundwater modeling in GIS is being applied for different spatial models or hydrological models, and there are separate applications which are developed on site specific applications. I don't want to go into details of this. I just wanted to tell you that there had been development of site specific solutions with respect to GIS and remote sensing application to groundwater research. Again, this is with respect to ICT applications in groundwater. But I am just trying to orient this to groundwater because that is a field which I know more, so that you can try to correlate with more the field which you like and try to compare where the ICT can be applied. And this is again with respect to subsurface mapping. So wherein you know that resistivity surveys are conducted to get a three-dimensional resistivity view. Generally we try to do it in a Schlumberger array or a Venner array, try to combine the different data in one dimension or two dimension, and then try to bring it to a three-dimensional picture like this. So data in one dimension, two dimensions are combined, and then you get a three-dimensional picture where you get a dome, where you get a ridge, or where you get a petroliferous basin expected. So subsurface features are brought out with the combination of the ICT techniques, and there is a software which we generally use for this is Rockworks. I think it comes next but slide. Yes, that is done in Rockworks, where all the geophysical logs are plotted here. You can see either it may be a lithological log or it may be a geophysical log. You try to plot it with respect to the three-dimensional subsurface and see if there is a fault, if there is no fault, how the water moves, or what happens if you introduce a fault in this region, then what will happen along the moment. So these are all some basic applications which you can do with the help of the ICT techniques in water research. And yes, this is a diagram which I wanted to show you. This is a very common think generally we don't know the potential of certain softwares which we use it daily. For example, this Excel is a software which we very commonly use, but it has a lot of variety of diagrams wherein you can produce different kind of innovative diagrams in this. So I've given you some examples of the diagrams which can be created with Excel. Probably I have not seen much of diagrams like this. I have not created. After looking at it, preparing for the lecture, I had been working on this lecture for some time, and after getting some information on this, I tried to explore Excel. So it was very interesting to know that you have lot of diagrams like this in Excel. Certain things are inbuilt, certain things you will have to be on add-ons, Excel add-ons you will have to take it in. And these are also some of the diagrams which you can do it in origin. Origin is another statistical representation wherein you can bring in the different kinds of diagrams like this. And this is with respect to MATLAB. For example, when you go for a subsurface studies on a climate change studies where you collect different pollens or different types of organisms, microorganisms with respect to depth. So we try to represent that in different depth wise, how it is changing, what is the environmental condition, whether it is shallow marine, deep marine, and in that case whether that kind of organism is persisting or what is the count of the organism. So what will be the paleogeographical condition. So that can be done with the help of the MATLAB. And nowadays, earlier days also this research was done. But I don't say that it was not done. But the time consumption and the way of presentation has become more impressive these days. Okay. And this is with respect to cloud computing. I will not take much time on this. As I have told you, there is a lot of data which is already available. You will have to integrate all these data. You can just call for all these data. You can write your own program in such a way that you take data from different websites and then process the data and give you the output. So you don't need to work on as a research. It doesn't mean that you will have to create your own data. You can also work on a voluminous data which is already available. So that also you can think about, and this will form the basis of cloud computing, wherein you can store your data in cloud itself. You don't need to store it down. And there is another way of presentation of the data which is very interesting presentation. Suppose you have a trade of water, virtual water transfer from one country to the other, or if there is a linkage between water, food, energy nexus, you can represent diagrams like this, interlinkage diagrams. And this is called as chord diagrams, means chord diagrams, which is almost like a sphere connected with respect to tangents or a secant, and then you know the chord. So that is how this name comes from. You can go to the website and you can see this can be done in Python. There are also other softwares which can do the diagram, but this is very easily done in Python. So it depends upon the research which you do. You find where it can be applicable and you can use the diagram. Okay. Yeah, again, I don't want to. Yeah. So at last of the research. So yes, I have done a lot of research and then produced lot of data and created some awareness, published a lot of articles. At last, what is left to the mankind? Whether the research has gone to the mankind, or whether there is an improvement with respect to the research article, or whether there is an impression on the research which you have done so far. So to measure that, the United Nations have developed sustainable developmental goals. So they have given an achievement for United Nations sustainable developmental goals in each field. There are 17 sustainable developmental goals, and water being one of the sustainable development goals, and that is 6. So SDG 6 we call. So SDG 6 is for water, sustainable developmental goal, to achieve water and sanitation for everybody around the globe. So that is called as SDG 6. Okay. So nowadays we had data throughout the country. Each country had its own data. There was no data sharing. Earlier we had aquifers with respect to country alone. So India had one aquifer, Pakistan had one aquifer, Nepal had an aquifer. Similarly, you had the GCC aquifer separately. Saudi had an aquifer, Kuwait has an aquifer. There are interconnected aquifers. We call these interconnected aquifers as transboundary aquifers. So to solve a problem of a transboundary aquifer, we need to have a common database or a database which is to be shared. So there are lot of research which is happening, but data is not shared. They say data is confidential, data is not going to be shared. So if data is not going to be shared, it is not going to be benefit either for this country nor for that country. Okay? So nowadays, UN always recommend a common data sharing platform. Okay? So in that, if you go to the UN website, you can see there are data shared platforms. You can see data of different countries, so that it focuses more on One Health. Nowadays we focus more on One Health, means all the environmental variables we consider, we need to work for all the environmental variables, not for one particular country, not for mankind alone. We will have to work for plants, we will have to work for animals, we will have to work for ourselves. So which is all behind us. We consider it as One Health, and UN focus more on One Health, so that we should have a very common database which is available throughout the website. So to process that website, we always need to depend upon information technology. Okay? So that forms the basis of this. And these are the different, even in SDG 6, there are different divisions on SDG 6 which addresses the different goals of SDG 6, 6.1, 6.2, there are different goals. And so where the information technology plays a very important role I have given, and what SDGs, this is SDG 6, and these are all the different roles here. You can see that this is data sharing. The last one, if you can see, international regional cooperation. So the information technology has played no or nil role in data sharing. So that is why most of the results, most of the research which is developed so far has not been successful for the entire global community. It may be successful for a small region, it may be successful for a country, but it is not globally successful. Until and unless this is achieved, we will not be able to get the global climate change scenario perfection or the global circulation model perfection. We will not be able to achieve unless this is being done. Okay? And you can get all the informations of SDGs. You can go to the website and you can get it for different countries. Okay, you can go to sdgdata.org. You will get lot of information whichever I have shown, and that is spatially distributed here. These are all spatial maps from that website alone. Okay, so now there is measure going on. Suppose if you are applying for an international internship, you are applying for an international project, or if you are applying for an international career development, they will ask you a question on what is your final result, how it will achieve the sustainable developmental goals. So to measure that, they have tools in your application. So at last, the end of research, how it will be useful to the community. So that should be there as an SDG in the application. And yes, at last, this is all different website based upon the cloud computing. There are different national groundwater websites. Yes, how to develop a web-based decision support system. This is again with the help of information technology. You will have a server somewhere else, and data will be, you will have to supply the data, but you will not know where it is updated, how it is validated, but you will know the spatial representation of the data, how it is represented. So coming back to my first slide, if you can remember, you need to describe the data, and you need to diagnose the data, predict the data, and what are the perspectives of the result, and what is the planning, how do you achieve the sustainable developmental goals. So this is generally the accomplishment of research and how it is done with respect to the information and technology. Okay? And these are all the word mapping which is generally used in sustainable developmental goal and the information technology with respect to the water research. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. ¿Algunas preguntas?
Buenas tardes, muchas gracias por su conferencia de excelencia. Una pregunta, ¿cuál sería su posición del impacto de la inteligencia artificial en la docencia de geociencias en esta parte?
Impact on geosciences.
He's asking the impact of artificial intelligence in geosciences, in the teaching of geosciences.
Obviously, yes. There are different softwares which are available for decision making. In different field of science, it is being applied. I've given you a small example when I was telling you something on paraphrasing tool. It is again an artificial intelligence tool. With different scenarios it is created. Though machine has its own advantages, it has its own limitations. We cannot 100% rely on the intelligence. For example, even in your remote sensing techniques, there is one technique called as kriging or interpolation of your database. So based upon the number of sampling points which you give, it tries to develop the spatial map. If you increase the number of sampling points, then your type of spatial representation will be changing. So depending upon the availability of the data set, what is fed into the system as a database, it tries to give you its expertise. But we have to be carefully interpreting the data and trying to say that whether it can be applicable to the field or not. But for teaching, definitely I don't suggest artificial intelligence is not a tool for teaching. You can have it as a handy tool. You can try to make the students to be aware that you can develop a tool. But teaching students should always know the basics of how it is being developed. And what is the plus, what is the minus, where you can use it, where you cannot use it. So science has always that limitations. I accept that point.
¿Alguna otra pregunta más?
Thank you.
Well, my question is also related with the using of artificial intelligence. So, then it's acceptable to use artificial intelligence when writing a paper. But what's the limit between using an AI and plagiarism?
See, obviously using AI for writing itself is a plagiarism. You are trying to bring in somebody else's sentence. For example, when you try to put your reference in order of somebody else, it shows plagiarism. You try to get somebody else's paper and put the order of reference which he has written, that will show you plagiarism. When you try to think and write your own idea, obviously it will definitely not show plagiarism except for one or two words. You will be very astonished to see that. When you try to copy and paste it, try to do the paraphrasing also. For example, if you use this paraphrase tool Quillbot, there are different, even in your paraphrasing, you have different types. Creative paraphrasing, shortening the sentences, expanding the sentences, or there are options like this. So you need to know where to use, at least that you should know, whether I need to shorten this or do a creative thinking. So when you shorten the entire essay writing, like when you shorten the entire, suppose you want to copy the entire paragraph, you want to shorten the paragraph, sometimes it will miss the important point. You get the point? So you will not know, you will be thinking that everything is there inside the paragraph, but it will definitely miss that important point. And you know, when you paraphrase it, the author will be placed in a different holder, the year number will be placed in a different holder. So obviously if you don't read the entire paragraph and paste it there, you are going to land in a problem. You get the point? So it is always a risky tool. Never use that unless and until you want to change your own sentence. You get the point? You have created your own sentence. You want to improve that sentence. For example, a language problem. For example, I know that I wanted to put a better word and express my view in a better manner. I say, like, for example, today was the groundwater composition was not good quality. So not good quality is a very common term which everybody uses. So I wanted that to be suggested by the system to get a better word. So then I go for a creative paraphrasing tool which can help me to get a better word. I'm not plagiarizing. I'm trying to improvise my language, my way of presentation. There it doesn't plagiarize. You get my point? So this is a small difference between where you can use the tool. Ethical. It's all ethical. It's left to you. Nobody is going to, nobody cannot judge you. You know what exactly you have done in the paper. When it is published, you will know. Like, I have done this kind of thing in the paper, that only you will know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, el último.
Sorry. Well, I have a question. That's base data is open for free. Another question is, I can take that data and grade an article about this. I have petition for you. You can share this presentation for us. Thank you.
Obviously, all research is open. If you want to develop a community, definitely you will have to be open-minded to share something what you have. So it's already there. You can copy it there.
Thank you, sir. Now, on behalf of ESIA Ticomán, we have a small token of love and respect. Invito al ingeniero Fernando Rodríguez Chávez para dar la entrega. Por favor.
First of all, welcome to Mexico City and our school. And this is a little present for you from my academic and student community. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I hope that the next year you stay in our school. It's a calcite with hematite and quartz from Mapimí, Durango. Thank you very much for your conference. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Inge. Ahorita la entrega de la constancia. El Instituto Politécnico Nacional, Secretaría de Investigación y Posgrado, Centro Interdisciplinario de Investigaciones y Estudios sobre Medio Ambiente y Desarrollo, Conocimiento Interdisciplinario para la Sustentabilidad. Certificate for Dr. Sabarathinam Chidambaram for the keynote lecture, Role of Computational Techniques in Groundwater Research. Cátedra Patrimonial en Medio Ambiente, Dr. Héctor Mayagoitia Domínguez. Excellence Professorship in Environmental Sciences, Mexico City, 13th November 2023. La técnica al servicio de la patria, signed by the Director of CIIEMAD-IPN, Dr. Pedro Francisco Rodríguez Espinosa. Thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you.
Bien, con esto yo me voy a permitir compartirle el micrófono al doctor Pedro Francisco Rodríguez Espinosa y bueno, también pedirle que nos dé unas palabras que cierren estos trabajos. Doctor, por favor.
Bueno, pues muchísimas gracias a los conferencistas, los lectors, Dr. Siti, Dr. Chidambaram, Dr. Mushankar. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure very much to your contribution for the school and for the country. Thank you. I want to say something about the translation. Por favor, démosle un aplauso muy grande a nuestra traductora que está ahí atrás, que se salga de la cabinita y que se nos diga. Ella es la licenciada Eneida trabaja con nosotros en el CIIEMAD y es su ópera prima, es exactamente la primera, como decía Milán Kundera, a veces el primer ensayo es la obra misma, y ya es lo que ha hecho ahorita, y ese es su primer ensayo y ya fue la obra. Muchísimas gracias, Anita. Bueno, vamos a levantarnos y vamos a dar un vuelo, muchachos, antes de cerrar, para que los... yo no sé decir, how do you say porra in English? Bueno, pay attention, please. ¿Listos? 1, 2, 3. ¡Vuelum! ¡Vuelum! ¡Gloria! ¡La cachi, cachi, porra! ¡La cachi, cachi, porra! ¡Pim, pom, porra! ¡Pim, pom, porra! ¡Politécnico, Politécnico! ¡Gloria!
Muchas gracias por su asistencia y que tengan muy buena tarde. Hasta luego.